with the release of the deck build set Crossover Breakers. Paired with the last ban list, the 3 most powerful and most despised decks of 2024 appear to have finally left the metagame. In the place of Tempai, Snake Eye and Yugioh came 2 new decks, Yugioh and MALISS. And combined, these 2 decks claimed around 70% top cut representation at YCS Anaheim, 80% at YCS Orlando and 75% at YCS Birmingham, finally ushering in a new format after the year-long reign of fire. And yet, the same issues appear to linger into 2025, particularly with the less powerful of the 2 new decks, MALISS. In 2024, people were already annoyed with Snake Eye and Yugioh because both of those decks extended ignorantly through hand traps while establishing boards that were too difficult to break. And MALISS, it appears, is playing along the exact same axis. The first prominent player to voice this was the current Master Duel World Champion and 6-time YCS Champion Jesse Cotton in his video New Year, New Format and Same Old Problems in Yu-Gi-Oh! And following this, 4 times YCS Champion and known German Joshua Schmidt, who has been a long-standing ardent critic of Cyberse decks, quickly joined in on this new wave anti-Cyberse discourse comparing MALISS to Mathmech. He argues that MALISS possesses all the same traits as the other Cyberse combo slop decks. Particularly, his issue is that Cyberse combo powers win the moment they are allowed to play the game, and that any extender invalidates 1-for-1 hand traps, due to Cyberse decks focusing on summoning as much link material as possible, as opposed to getting to specific bodies.
Player has never had more than 2 turns because their turn 1 combo is designed to win the game on the spot, and their going second plan is to just go transcode, update jammer, access code for game, right? Their entire game plan, their design is to win in 1 turn. Either your first turn when you go first is too strong to handle, when you go second you try to OTK immediately. If that doesn't work, you usually lose. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't like that type of design.
Add to this the presence of turn skip cards like Artifact Lancia, and the deck's limited ability to go second into a detonator with just engine. And that creates a supposedly highly volatile deck. A deck that instantly wins going first and massively struggles going second, unless it is able to immediately OTK. In short, MALISS is a Cyberse combo deck. It embodies all the same problems that people allegedly have with Cyberse design. And it is merely another incarnation of a long tradition of mindless link spam. And yet, when you play the deck, at least to me, it does not feel like a Cyberse combo deck. It does not feel like Mathmech or Code Talker. It feels closer to other Cyberse decks like Salamangreat and Marincess. Strategies that focus on their own internal resource loop, rather than immediately winning the game and spamming the board with as many link bodies as possible. Regardless of what I think, to answer whether MALISS is actually a Cyberse combo slop pile, we first need to look at how MALISS actually plays, and then after that, at how the other Cyberse combos play. MALISS is a deck made out of 3 main deck pawns and 3 link-free queens, which all share the same effect of special summoning themselves from the banish zone once they get banished. This design suggests a gameplay loop oriented on cycling through all of your MALISS main deck names to summon all of the link-frees, and then after that, to consolidate the materials gained through this climbing into some kind of endboard. The ability to return any of the MALISS names to the field so easily, especially the link freeze, appears to be a recipe for disaster. However, the design of cycling through as many names as possible in fact discourages extensive link climbing, This is because all of the Malice links are link frees, and thus they cannot be used to link climb effectively into one another. When you use red ransom as a link material for white binder, then you still end up with a link free on the field, with 0 to no increase. The Malice in archetype boss monster, Malice of Hearts Cryptor, further reinforces this by requiring exactly 3 materials for its summon. This, in a sense, waste of link rating runs counterintuitive to what people expect or the Cyberse combos. When Ignister plays, it starts by summoning a link 1, then a link 2, then a link 3, all the way up to their own link 6 boss monster. Their combo involves a constant ascension of a link climbing, while Malice's climbing seems to freeze around their link 3s. For Malice, their internal design promotes summoning specifically Malice bodies, rather than just any Cyberse bodies possible. In theory, this design helps to mitigate Malice's potential for mindless body spamming and link climbing, but of course, a deck's design is only a suggestion for how to play it, and not necessarily how competitive duelists will play it. That is to say, we now have to look past how Malice was designed, and instead at how it is actually played. On release, Malice was indeed played like a standard Cyberse combo deck. Splash Mage and Fireball Dragon were part of standard lines of 1 Dormouse, used to link climb and draw 2 cards in the process. Then, everything was put together to summon the same boss monster as any other Cyberse deck: Fireball Dragon Dark Fluid, Neo Tempest Terahertz. This link 5 monster can, as a quick effect, send any Cyberse monster from the deck or extra deck to the graveyard. Through the save form and Enigma's PAK bit, it made for 2 powerful interruptions on top of what Malice already did itself. This combo, although generating a powerful endboard, also came with some big downsides. Terahertz on its own took up 3 valuable extra deck spots, while Dotscape itself was a misroll brick to draw. Still, both of these inclusions were assumed to be mandatory at first. However, the first notable player to do completely away with these cards was Nico Slierkamp, in his second place German Open finish. He instead played a more mid-range Malice build, that ended on Hearts of Cryptor with SP Little Knight, on top of the standard GWC setup. When paired with Non-Engine and a Fiendsmith in Paradise in the graveyard, this weaker board was still powerful enough to win games. Then later, with the release of Abao AQ, the Lightless Shadow, in Supreme Darkness, Malice gained access to another FTK style endboard. Abao has the effect to summon any light or dark monster from your graveyard as a quick effect. This pairs nicely with your own Malice monsters, which are all darks. It can also revive SP Little Knight to make that card an interruption on top of already being a combo piece. And more dauntingly, it can revive Nightmare Griffin. This link 4 prevents the effect activations of any monsters that aren't linked. So against non-link decks, this card can often win games on its own, and it was poised to define what it meant to play Malice going forward. But then, Wise's Orlando came and went. A 2 times SJC champion and 1 times UDS champion Jeff Jones managed to claim 3rd place with Malice at this event. And like other players, he played the Abao combo, but during his post-event reflections, he noted that he had only performed the combo twice throughout the entire weekend.
I summoned a Bound Griffin a total of 2 times the entire weekend. Every single match I won was thanks to like a steady Malice strategy using just Cryptor and Binder control. In fact, basically after this event, I'm seriously considering a version of Malice that just doesn't use like Abao or Griffin at all, and try to take the deck in a different direction.
As he found out, playing Hearts of Cryptor and GW6 control still was powerful enough to win games. There was also Advice Orlando that other top players, such as PAK and Yugioh, introduced the idea of summoning White Binder first during the combo. Doing so guarantees that you do end on GWC6 through Nibiru, without having to play an otherwise useless card like Link Spider. But as a cost, it turned the end board into just SP Little Knight plus the trap, instead of the more powerful Fireball Dragon or Abara Q end board that was made by summoning Red Ransom first. The Fireball Pass end board was already a downgrade from the previous one-card Terahertz end boards too, as a result of completely cutting the Dotscaper brick from decks. What this shows is that, as players became better at piloting the deck, the power of MALISS end boards started to shrink rather than increase in power.
Have you guys seen the new MALISS combos? Dormouse ends on 1 bounce and 1 banish. Who cares? As their board is worse than Ryziel.
Okay, where's the Nightmare Griffin in that equation? Why have we just ignored that card?
Yeah, that's the one I was going to mention.
That card is not in any of the 1-card combos if you play well.
This development is, in hindsight, not completely surprising, considering how powerful the GWC6 setup is. GWC6 can summon back White Binder during the opponent's turn, but then on summon can banish a Red Ransom or a White Rabbit from the graveyard, to then in turn summon those back. Then on summon, White Rabbit can set MTP7 from the deck to act as a non-targeting banish, while MTP7 and Red Ransom also both supply a form of follow-up. Additionally, White Binder itself can act as an interrupt by banishing cards from the opponent's graveyard. While this setup also adds more bodies for the opponent to work through, and finally, it layers the end board. Regardless of the opponent's hand traps, GWC6 means MALISS can end almost always on some form of disruption for the opponent's turn. Nibiru does stop any further extending that the deck can do, but when it is played around, GWC6 at the very least can be guaranteed. In addition, the layered nature of the MALISS endboard means that no one card kills it entirely. Top deck Ghost Bells, Ash Blossoms or Dominus Impulses do serve as counterplay, as does a pair of Bestios to banish all of the White Rabbits during the end phase. And yet, these only interact with the GWC6 setup, and not with the end board already on field. Simultaneously, standard board breakers such as Dark Ruler No More or Ultimate Slayer have no impact on the GWC6 setup. All of this is to say, MALISS's history of slowly decreasing the power and the size of its end boards for the sole sake of guaranteeing its own recess loop for the opponent's turn highlights MALISS's unique status as a Cyberse combo deck. It does not need to make unbreakable boards in order to succeed. As players proficient at the deck such as Nico Slierkamp, Jeff Jones and PAK have repeatedly shown. This proves what was already suggested by MALISS's own design. Cycling through its own names is superior to the generic link spamming of Cyberse slop decks. This is evidenced by the absence of splash mates from the standard MALISS combos, and the absence of Transco Talker from deck lists entirely. MALISS cards are good enough to stand and win on their own, while the Cyberse slop pile is forced to rely on these extenders to win. And turning MALISS into yet another Cyberse combo pile by including all of those cards, similar to the likes of Code Talker or Ignister, would only make the deck worse, not better. But then, how does this differ from a deck like Mathmech? Both MALISS and Mathmech attempt to end on a trap that summons an archetypal boss monster during the opponent's turn, while link climbing to pair that trap with some extra bodies. For Mathmech, their in-archetype trap is Mathmech Superfactorial, which during the opponent's turn is used to summon 3 Mathmech monsters from the graveyard, and then immediately afterwards conduct an exe summon using all of the summoned bodies. Additionally, both setups lose to cards such as Dominus Impulse and Ghost Bell. In fact, the MALISS setup is resistant to more commonly played hand traps, such as Bestios not affecting it much. By also being able to use their own Bestios to still summon White Biner in the circumstance that GWC6 is negated. The simple answer is Superfactorial Resolving immediately ends the game. It is used to XC summon Prime Mathmech Laplacian, a rank 4 that rips 2 to 3 resources immediately upon summon, including one from the hand, while also being a free Omni negate due to Diameter's inheritance effect. Contrast this with GWC6, which only results in some powerful follow-up and a later non-targeting banish, with the often negligible bonus of banishing a few cards from the opponent's graveyard. Superfactorial is an all or nothing play that either immediately wins or immediately loses you the game. GWC6 is a powerful setup that, regardless of its power, is not overwhelming. On this front, MALISS plays more similarly to Tri-Brigade than to Mathmech. Both MALISS and Tri-Brigade establish a decent endboard, while also relying on a trap that acts as simultaneously interruption and follow-up. And most importantly, resolving their traps neither instantly wins nor instantly loses them the game. So finally, what was the point of all this? Certainly not to argue that MALISS's card design is flawless. Being a deck with Cyberse monsters still allows it to play some cards that shouldn't exist. Cards like Link Decoder generate a free body for just existing. And although MALISS players rather would not summon Splash Mage if they can help it, its existence still allows the deck to extend through hand traps at zero investment cost. MALISS does have issues, but none of these are the product of it being a Cyberse deck, nor the quality of its endboard. In this regard, it is not significantly different from other decks from the current format. The real overwhelming power of MALISS comes during turn 3, where, even if the whole field is outed, a single Bistio banishing White Biner from the graveyard immediately can fill the board with 5 bodies. This dynamic makes it genuinely hard to combat a MALISS turn 3, especially when taking into account the massive amount of damage it can put on board with Hearts of Cryptor and Access Code Talker. Link Decoder and Bistios are incredibly powerful cards that allow MALISS to push through sometimes too many hand traps. And regardless, these issues of the deck all stem from the not actually MALISS cards, and especially not from their Cyberse typing. When you cross-compare how professional MALISS players pilot the deck, and how its supposed counterparts in Cyberse slop combo decks play, the comparisons are barely there. Calling MALISS Cyberse slop is not only to massively misunderstand how MALISS functions, but also to misunderstand the actually problematic Cyberse powers. Instead, MALISS is a non-Cyberse Cyberse combo deck, content to play the game rather than being pressed to end it on the spot.